if you've ever been to Japan, when you buy like a bento or go to a restaurant, you might get served something like this. So on a beautiful white rice with this red thing on top. So like, what is it and what's its purpose? So I've been living in Japan for like close to like 4 years now, and whenever I get served this, I usually just brush it off as just one of those Japanese things. And people say that it represents the Japanese flag, since, you know, like a red thing with like the rice. I'll have a graphic on it somewhere. But like, yeah, it kind of does resemble the flag, but I'm not convinced. So today, I finally want to discover the answer, which could have been a quick Google search, but I fell into like this history rabbit hole, and you're joining me on this quest whether you like it or not. I mean, you can choose to like close the video, but you know, please just stay. So, off the top, this little crimson ball has a name. Umeboshi, which literally means like plum drying, like dried plums, pickled plums. So like, I remember myself like looking perplexed and just like ate it straight. And needless to say, I was kind of taken back by its strong flavor. So like, if you're the type of person to munch on like umeboshi, I don't know how you do it. Teach me. Anyways, a quick Google search. Actually, yeah, let's do a quick Google search. Origin of umeboshi. Alright. I don't know if you can see it. So basically, it's like made their way to Japan by Central China about 1500 years ago. So if I was a normal person, I'd call it a day, but I couldn't let it go. I should have let it go. Pickled plums. So I wanted to try and trace its like roots. So like, based from the name, pickled plums, like what's the first pickle basically? So in order to try and find this, the earliest that I was able to reference was that pickling was done as far back as like 2400 BC when cucumbers were in India. I mean, that's just like a jar of pickle, not like the first pickle, but yeah, like the earliest I was able to reference that like, was that pickling was done as far back as like 2400 BC when cucumbers in India were pickled in the Tigris Valley. So, according to the oldest medical document in China, the Shen, Nong, I completely ruined that pronunciation for that.
神农本草经.
The first indirect mention of the dried plums was from here. Oh yeah, this is like the document. Anyways, so how it came to Japan, I couldn't exactly pinpoint any specific time, but if it originally came from a medicinal historical record from China, then the umeboshi that came to Japan was a medicine, not the side dish that is now consumed today. So how did it transition from a medicine to a side dish? So remember when I mentioned earlier that the umeboshi came from China? So the early version of umeboshi that came was in the form of what's called ubai, which was basically dried and smoked unripe ume. So it's like, you know, this like darker thing, and it's like totally not red. So this was taken as like a medicine to cure whatever it was it trying to cure. But from what we know today from modern medicine, so fermentation makes the fruit more acidic, which they already are to some extent, and apart from the yeasts or molds that we want to retain when pickling or fermenting something, the high concentration inhibits unwelcome microorganisms, ergo antimicrobial properties. Look at that. Okay, so let's move forward to about 950 AD in the Heian period, where you can find the oldest surviving medical document, the Iijima, which says that the umeboshi is sour, flat, and not poisonous. Anyways, take note that up to this time, the umeboshi was still used for its medicinal properties. So anyways, we fast forward again to the Warring States period, from 1467 to 1573, and this is the earliest anecdote that umeboshi starts being incorporated in meals as we know it today. I mean, it wasn't rice yet though. It was a concoction in which umeboshi is salted and dried under the sun in order to evaporate almost all of its water. So this turns it into a rock-like candy called umeboshi gan. You can't see the end. So with most of its water gone, its shelf life is like really long, and as such it has become a vitamin ration in times of war, and that they were thought to prevent the spread of infectious diseases as well as ward off food poisoning. And now we go to Wakayama, or rather Minabe in Wakayama. So back then, the rice harvest wasn't up to standard, so one day one of the feudal lords saw the ume tree growing in the mountain and decided that by planting ume tree in places where the rice couldn't grow, they could decrease taxes and increase growth in the area. And thus, the growth of the yabu ume was born. I mean, this isn't like the yabe ume, but just like go with it. So anyways, this type of ume was like small and had little flesh, but that didn't stop them. So through the magic of selective breeding and trial and error, they were eventually able to find a variant that's big and plump. So thin skin, smaller seeds, softer flesh made it the perfect type of ume that people liked. Now, it was also during this time that the umeboshi no longer became like a hip thing that people of the average stature eat. So eventually, it became like a Japanese home food during the Edo period. So from then, all was swell until this thing called cholera was a huge deal, because who knew that disposing waste in your drinking water was bad? You know what they did to fight off cholera? You guessed it, umeboshi. So, packed with like citric acid and like natural antibacterial properties, these salty little plums became the frontline defense against cholera. But while all that was happening, down in the quiet hills of Minabe in Wakayama, something special was brewing. So in 1902, a local farmer named Sadagusu Takada noticed something different in his orchard. One of his ume wasn't like the others. Its fruit was bigger, plumper, and, well, in every aspect, just better. So he took great care of that tree as if it was his kid, and that tree eventually became the mother of what was called the Takada ume. So later, a man named Heiichi Koyama carried on Takada's work, making sure that this legendary tree's legacy didn't fade away. So we fast forward to 1950, and the people of Minabe were on a mission, specifically the teachers and students from Minabe High School. So they teamed up, testing dozens of ume varieties over 5 years in order to find the one true ume to rule them all. So after all this soil sampling, seed planting, and plum picking, the verdict was in. So eventually, the Takada ume reigned supreme out of all that was tested. So in order to honor both the original tree and the school that helped make it famous, they changed the Takada ume's name, which we now know as Nanko ume. So the next time you see umeboshi, whether it's chilling or staring at you in front of your rice, or just chilling beside a side dish like fish, just remember that this tiny, wrinkly plum is packed with science and history. And now I can finally put this to rest. So thanks and have a good day. Bye-bye! Oh, and before I go, I'd like to do with one final thought. So if you order like a sushi or like other Japanese dishes, there's this like plastic leaf that's there. Why is it there? Want me to make a video about that? Comment down below. Bye!